Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story not just about an invention, but about a radical idea that fundamentally reshaped America's economic landscape. Imagine, if you will, the early 1900s. Industrial America was booming, but for the average worker, life was often brutal. Long hours, dangerous conditions, and wages barely enough to get by. This was the era of the wage slave, a stark reality that defined the daily grind for millions. But one man would challenge this entire paradigm. That man, of course, was Henry Ford. Born in 1863, Ford was a visionary, a tinkerer obsessed with efficiency and bringing the automobile to the masses. His dream wasn't just to build cars, but to build affordable cars, cars that the common American family could own. He believed in the power of standardization and continuous improvement, a philosophy that would birth one of history's most iconic inventions. He saw a future where machines, not just men, would drive prosperity. By 1913, Ford's Highland Park plant in Michigan was humming. The iconic Model T, nicknamed the Tin Lizzie, was rolling off the production lines, revolutionizing personal transportation. But to achieve his dream of mass accessibility, Ford needed more than just a good car. He needed a revolutionary way to build it. He sought to break down complex tasks into simple, repetitive motions, a concept that would redefine manufacturing forever. Ford and his engineers began experimenting with a moving assembly line. Instead of workers moving to the car would move to the workers. This wasn't just a clever trick, it was a paradigm shift. In its early days, assembling a single Model T took 12.5 hours. The new assembly line cut that down dramatically. It was an astonishing leap in productivity, promising to unlock unprecedented scale and lower costs for consumers. The future of manufacturing was literally in motion. The results were astounding. By 1914, the time it took to build a Model T plummeted to a mere 93 minutes. Ford could now produce more cars faster and cheaper than anyone imagined. This efficiency allowed him to further drop the price of the Model T, making it accessible to even more Americans. It seemed like an unbreakable cycle of success: produce more, sell more, grow more. But beneath the gleaming surface of efficiency, a hidden problem was brewing.
Despite the revolutionary efficiency, Ford faced a crippling problem: worker turnover. The repetitive, monotonous nature of assembly line work was soul-crushing. Workers lasted only a few months, sometimes just days, before quitting. In 1913, Ford had to hire more than 50,000 men just to maintain a workforce of 14,000. This constant churn was incredibly expensive, costing the company millions in training and lost productivity. Something had to change, and fast. Ford and his management team realized they were in a bind. Their cutting-edge production methods were being undermined by an antiquated labor system. They needed to stabilize their workforce to give employees a reason to stay. But how? Conventional wisdom suggested punishing absenteeism or offering small bonuses. Ford, however, was never one for conventional wisdom. He was about to make a decision so radical, so unprecedented, it would send shockwaves through the entire industrial world. On January 5, 1914, Henry Ford announced a truly astonishing policy. He would pay his workers $5 a day. Let that sink in. At a time when the average factory worker earned around $2.25 a day, Ford was more than doubling his employees' wages. It was an unheard-of sum, a bold gamble that few, if any, other industrialists would have dared to consider. The news exploded across the nation. The immediate reaction was a mixture of shock, awe, and outright condemnation. Other industrialists accused Ford of being a socialist, of ruining the labor market, of setting a dangerous precedent. Wall Street pundits scoffed, predicting Ford Motor Company's imminent collapse. How could any company survive, let alone thrive, while paying such exorbitant wages? The financial establishment believed Ford had lost his mind, sacrificing profit for some utopian ideal. But Ford had a secret weapon, a fundamental insight. Ford's genius wasn't just in making cars, it was in understanding the economy as a whole system. He recognized that high wages weren't just an expense, they were an investment. An investment in his workforce, yes, but also an investment in his customers. He famously stated, "It is necessary to pay more than the market price for labor so that these men can buy the product they make." This was a revolutionary idea. Workers as consumers, creating their own demand.
The effects were immediate and dramatic. The very next day, thousands of men converged on the Ford factory gates in Highland Park, desperate for a chance at the $5 wage. There were lines stretching for miles, men from every corner of America, even immigrants newly arrived, all vying for one of these coveted jobs. The company had to deploy fire hoses to control the crowds. Ford could now pick the very best workers, those most disciplined and eager. Worker turnover, the crippling problem that had plagued Ford, plummeted. It dropped by an astonishing 90%. With stable, loyal, and highly motivated workers, productivity soared. Quality improved. The vast sums previously spent on hiring and training new employees were now saved. Ford could demand more from his workforce, knowing they wouldn't easily leave. This stability allowed the assembly line to reach its true, uninterrupted potential. The factory was a well-oiled machine. But the $5 day came with strings attached. To qualify for the full wage, workers had to meet certain criteria, not just for performance, but for their personal lives. Ford established a sociological department staffed by inspectors who visited employees' homes, evaluating their cleanliness, sobriety, and financial habits. This paternalistic oversight was controversial, blurring the lines between employer and private life, but it underscored Ford's belief in cultivating a responsible consumer class. His vision extended beyond the factory gates. The ripple effects of Ford's decision spread far beyond his factory. Other companies, facing competition for the best workers and witnessing Ford's undeniable success, were pressured to raise their own wages. This contributed to a general increase in industrial pay across America, strengthening the purchasing power of millions. The American dream, once an elusive concept, started to feel more attainable for the working class. A new era of prosperity was dawning, fueled by higher wages and mass consumption. The most profound impact, however, was on the American consumer. With higher wages, Ford's workers, and eventually other factory workers, could afford the very products they were making. They could buy their own Model Ts, refrigerators, radios, and other goods that were once considered luxuries. This created a massive, unprecedented domestic market, driving the growth of countless industries and ushering in the age of mass consumerism. The concept of the middle class, as we know it today, began to solidify. The $5 day wasn't just a wage increase, it was a societal catalyst. It transformed workers into consumers, production into purchasing power, and industrial output into widespread prosperity. It helped create a virtuous cycle where higher wages led to higher demand, which in turn justified higher production, and so on. This economic engine powered the Roaring Twenties and laid much of the groundwork for America's 20th century dominance. It was a masterclass in economic foresight. Of course, Ford's legacy is complex. While he championed higher wages, he was also fiercely anti-union, using aggressive tactics to suppress organized labor. His paternalistic policies were intrusive, and his social views were often deeply problematic. Yet his influence on the American economy, and indeed the global economy, is undeniable. He proved that a company could pay its workers well, achieve massive scale, and still be incredibly profitable. The $5 day was more than just a raise. It was a blueprint for a new kind of capitalism. It suggested that a robust domestic market, driven by well-paid labor, was essential for industrial success. It showed that business leaders had a role, intentional or not, in shaping the broader economic health of the nation. This idea would echo through subsequent decades, influencing discussions on minimum wage, labor rights, and the very structure of America's economic identity. It's a powerful lesson, isn't it? That sometimes the most radical financial decision isn't about cutting costs, but about investing in the very people who power your enterprise. Ford's $5 day was an act of economic alchemy, transforming raw labor into a powerful engine of prosperity that drove the nation forward for generations. It revealed an often overlooked truth, that a company's greatest asset isn't its machines, but its people. So the next time you hear about wages, or consumer spending, or the strength of the middle class, remember Henry Ford and his audacious gamble. Remember how one man's decision, driven by both self-interest and a profound understanding of economic forces, helped to build a nation and redefine what was possible for the everyday American worker. It wasn't just a business move, it was a stroke of economic genius that echoed through history.
The $5 day became a symbol of economic opportunity, a beacon for ambitious workers seeking a better life. It cemented Ford's reputation, not just as an industrialist, but as a figure who, for better or worse, played a pivotal role in shaping the social contract between capital and labor in the United States. His actions forced other industries to reconsider their own wage structures, elevating the standard of living for many. This shift in thinking, from viewing labor purely as a cost to seeing it as a vital component of the consumer market, was profound. It laid the groundwork for future economic policies aimed at fostering widespread prosperity. The idea that workers should earn enough to participate in the consumer economy they help create became an enduring principle, albeit one continually debated and refined throughout the century. Ford, in his own way, ignited this conversation. Of course, the $5 day wasn't a universal panacea. Many still struggled, and Ford's system had its critics, but its impact was undeniable. It proved that businesses could thrive by paying their workers a living wage, creating a positive feedback loop that benefited both company profits and societal well-being. This lesson, hard-won in the early 20th century, remains incredibly relevant in today's economic discussions. The story of Ford's $5 day isn't just about an old car company or a quirky industrialist. It's a foundational chapter in how America's economic identity was forged. It's about the power of a single, radical decision to unlock unforeseen prosperity, to build a new middle class, and to forever change the relationship between work, wages, and the pursuit of the American dream. This wasn't just about efficiency, it was about vision. And that, my friends, is the hard truth this story proves. True economic growth often comes not from squeezing every last penny out of production, but from empowering the very people who drive it. Until next time, keep exploring the hidden stories behind the headlines, because financial history, as you can see, is always more than just numbers. It's about people, ideas, and the daring decisions that shape our world.